Hello, my name is Dr. Zion and I head the counselling unit at Jesus House. Now, we promised that we would be presenting a series of programs aimed at helping us to manage our mental health, and this is the very first in this series. Now, we've been on lockdown for a few weeks now, and most of us should have started getting a handle on what works for us. I'm sure by now most of us have stopped binging on programs and newscasts that really are not helpful. Personally, I have deleted a few people off WhatsApp and I have removed myself from certain groups because they are giving me information that really isn't helpful for me. I'm also hoping that most of us are taking care of ourselves. The COVID-19 disease is primarily to do with our immune system. So I'm hoping that we're doing as much as we can to really boost our systems by eating nutritious, healthy meals, by exercising, by getting fresh air, and by just pacing ourselves and just taking life slowly. I'm hoping that we're sleeping properly. I'm hoping that as much as possible we're trying to, reset our lives in ways that are helpful for us going forward. So, enough of the medical advice now. Let's move on to what I'm really here to talk about, which is about our mental health and how we can the things we can do to just make sure that we're in a good place until this is all over. So, human beings, we like to remain in control. We like to believe that we're in control. We like to believe that we control everything in our lives. And so we create schedules and we make plans, and everything has a particular time and every place has a particular slot. And that's the way we manage ourselves. Then something huge like COVID comes along, and we find that we're not in control. We find that we can't control what happens. We find that we're at the mercy of everything and everyone. And we now have to start looking for inner resources on how to cope. Now, for a lot of people, this will make us anxious, and certainly it will make us very stressful. And so what is this anxiety and what is this stress? What does it feel like? What does it look like? So we find that we feel unsettled. We'll find that we start finding it difficult to concentrate properly on a task. We'll find that we get easily distracted. We become a bit quick-tempered. The fuse starts getting a bit shorter. We find that we start feeling overwhelmed. We find that we start feeling frustrated. We find sometimes that we start procrastinating. We find that, sometimes our sleep is disrupted. And in very severe cases, people start experiencing panic attacks where they just start feeling like they can't breathe. They feel, the feelings of being overwhelmed become quite extreme. And I think the saddest for most of us, especially as children of God, is that sometimes we start feeling distance from God. We find that instead of drawing closer to God, we're almost sort of drawing away from Him. And it makes sense. It makes sense because when we feel overwhelmed like that, the natural reaction of the body, of the human mind, is to distract itself. And lots of people, sadly, look for different, very unhelpful ways of distraction. So a good one would be binging on Netflix box sets instead of doing anything meaningful with time, just wasting time. For some of us, we just overeat, we just eat and eat. In extreme cases, people find that they're self-medicating with drugs, with alcohol, anything to just try and maintain control, try and damp down those overwhelming feelings of not being in control, of not being able to predict what's going to happen next. Now, distraction isn't all bad. Distraction can be very useful. The only thing is that we need to try and find helpful ways of distracting ourselves. So, for example, a good way of distracting ourselves would be to watch movies that will make us laugh, things that, but in a scheduled way, in a studied way, where we're not binging, we're just dipping into it. And while we're watching these movies, use it as an opportunity to draw close to the family, let them be family events where we actually get to sit together, we get to talk together, we get to watch the movie together, we comment, we talk, we fellowship, even as we're watching the movie and we're having fun. And so we're not thinking about all the difficult things going on. We're actually spending time together, drawing closer to one another. Another thing we can do is, don't laugh at me, but do puzzles. This is the time, all those apps on our phones, all those, those funny games that make you think. And there are quite a few good ones, on the app stores. Now's the time to use them. Things that will exercise your brain joggers, as I call them. Now's the time to get into Sudoku. And, if you have a creative bent, this is the time to start, drawing, to start painting. This is the time to start knitting. Yes, I know. Traditionally, it's only old women that knit and crochet, but you know what? You're creating something. And just the fact that you're doing something, the fact that you're creating something tangible that you can see, it boosts our feelings, it boosts our sense of well-being within ourselves. What else can we do? We can take piano lessons. This is the time to learn to play the guitar. Those things you've always wanted to do. That language you wanted to learn. Now's the time to start learning the language. Read books, there's a place for trashy novels. There's also a place for and a time for books that develop us. Now, don't get carried away and think, you need to be reading textbooks all the time. Read some of the trash, read some of the good things. It's all about balance. It's all about, feeling good. It's all about feeling that I haven't wasted all this time. I've actually got something. I've gotten a few things that I can take away and know that I've accomplished in this time. So how does this work for somebody who's been laid off or furloughed? Because, obviously their experience of anxiety and stress at this time must be way off the scale. What do we do? At the risk of sounding harsh, and I don't mean to be harsh, the truth is the first step is accepting the reality of what's going on. Settle it in your heart. This has happened, it has happened. So what do I do now? I grieve in any way I know how to. It could be that I talk to somebody. It could be that I find someone to talk to. Now's the time to draw on friends and family for support and help. Now's the time to really turn to God and say, Lord, help me, strengthen me in my inner man. Help me to make sense of what doesn't make sense. Because, it's only God that can help us make sense of what's going on. Now's the time to say, right, that CV. I need to find someone who will help me. Now's the time to say, look, what else? What other skills can I acquire during this time? What else can I do to just use this time in a way where I will look back and not feel that a lot of time was wasted and so it's all a loss for me? Now, for every single one of us, including the other things that can help us with anxiety, is keeping a journal. Every Christian that keeps a journal knows that it's a very helpful way. It's a way where it's a safe place for most of us where we can pour out our thoughts and our feelings. Sometimes those things that we don't really want to discuss with anybody, writing it in that little book can help us. And the truth is, even as you write, you find that you're processing your thoughts, you're processing everything that's going on. So it is in the course of writing that we start experiencing gratitude. We start understanding the things that we're really grateful for. Some friends and I are doing a 7-day gratitude challenge where we're writing one thing down every day that we are grateful for. Now, I find that I'm writing more than one every day. I find that when I look around, there's so much to be grateful for. You go for a walk, the weather is so nice. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. That's something to be grateful for. I find now that anything I want to eat, I can get it to buy, and I have the time to actually cook it the way I want. There's so much to be grateful for if we just care to look for it. The other thing that we do is, I would say, is keep a worry journal, a worry list. Anytime you feel a thought, an anxious thought or something you worry about, anytime it bubbles up, write it down. Write it down, because when you write it down, you've kind of gotten it out of your system. So keep a pad beside you. Write all these troublesome thoughts. At the end of the day, review this list. Chances are you'll find that if you wrote 10 things down, 7 of them at least have sorted themselves out. 1 of them you will take back to the Lord in prayer. And possibly 2 of them, you'll find that you can proactively determine or create a way of dealing with it. You could make a plan. You could maybe find someone to talk to about it. You could find a way or create a way of addressing it that is useful, rather than it just bubbling under the surface and making you feel even worse than you've felt all along. Relationships. This is the time when we need our friends. This is the time when we need our families. This is the time when we need to reach out to one another. This is the time when we really need to leverage all those friendships that we've had over the time. Now, some people will be living alone, and more than anything, they need us. This is the time when we need to think about all those people we know, reach out to them. When we give, we find that it makes you feel good. Anything that makes us feel good will reduce all these feelings of anxiety and stress. So reach out to people who you feel are alone. Reach out to people who are not alone. Reach out to friends you haven't spoken to in a long time. Watch out for your parents if they're still with us. Watch out for your siblings, your friends, just be good, be nice to people, talk to them, give them the opportunity to talk to you, be there for them. If there's anybody who needs help and you're in a position, help them. This is the time when more than anything our humanity is in the fore, where we can reach out and show people who we are. We can show that we are truly children of God. This is the time when we can be the hands and feet, as Jesus says, where we can help one another and be there for one another. I've spoken about exercise already. Exercise. It creates endorphins. It makes us feel good. It keeps our bodies working. The body genuinely does need to work. Now, if we weren't exercising before this lockdown started, we really need to be exercising now, because we're not going out as we used to. We're not moving our bodies. Enough said about exercise, because I'm sure everybody knows the importance of exercise. Now, sleep. Sleep is a big one. And I'm going to talk about it more probably in the next episode. In talking about routines, one routine we should not be compromising on is sleep. We should maintain our sleep routines. But as I said, I'm going to talk about it more because it's a really, really big one. Talking. It's good to talk. And it's particularly good to talk about our mental health. I want to advise anybody who's feeling overwhelmed, feeling anxious, feeling stressed, experiencing feelings of panic, feeling so much disquiet about what's going on. I want to encourage you to reach out. Reach out to us in the counselling unit if you have no one to talk to. The number is 07961 777 316. Alternatively, send an email to counselling@jesushouse.org.uk. We are here. We are ready to help you. We have a team of trained professionals that are ready to walk with you and work with you just to help you maintain your feelings of mental well-being. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is prayer. This is a time to reach out to God. This is a time when all those spiritual disciplines that we've had all the time, we've had over the years, this is the time to really key in, to dig deeper. This is the time to ask God to show us, to direct our paths. This is the time to draw close to God. We all say we don't have time to pray as much as we should. We all say we don't have time to read our Bibles. This is the time to do that. And quite frankly, one of the things that I find extremely helpful when one is feeling anxious and stressed is to play worship music. Play music in the background, Create an atmosphere, a beautiful atmosphere around you, so the presence of God can move in and heal our hearts, our souls, and grant us His peace. The Bible says He will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on Him. This is an opportunity to tap into that peace of God that passes all understanding by just spending time in His presence, and it can be pretty passive at this point in time, but we serve a God who's good, who reaches out and helps us at our point of need. Now, this is the final one. The final one is we are beginning to get used to lockdown now. We're beginning to get used to washing our hands all the time. We're beginning to get used to all the normal disciplines we've had to learn over the past few weeks. And I want to appeal you, don't start slacking now. Don't start thinking that we're at the peak and things are going to keep going down. You need to keep the social distancing. You need to keep washing those hands. You need to make sure you stay safe. You need to stay home. You need to protect the NHS. You need to save lives. More than anything, I know we're getting really frustrated with staying at home, but now's the time to really take time to make sure that we're doing what we should be doing and not allowing our standards to slip. I know God is with us, and I know He's keeping us, and I know that He will keep each of us safe and well. So thank you for listening to me. I look forward to seeing you again very soon, and have a blessed evening.